Hello and welcome to my channel on Ancient and Chinese Astrology. I am professional astrologer Zagata from the website 100%astrology.com. In this video I would like to examine the topic of must astrology fully reflect the sky? In other words, there is this idea as put forth by sidereal astrologers that astrology must fully reflect the sky. Astrology, whatever is seen in the sky must be present in the chart, and if it's not present, if astrology doesn't reflect it, if it doesn't show it, you know, it's not real, it's not potent, therefore kind of almost saying, it should be discarded. This is not if it's not based on observation, if it can't be seen, etc. Well, folks, I'm here to pick apart and to destroy this view. Of course, by now, my approach is always scientific, in the sense that I give the sources, the materials, the historical quotes, etc. I make sure to differentiate what is fact, what is history, and what is opinion, what is theory, etc. So let's get started. Well, let's first keep in mind how astrology came about. Astrology came about, again, as I explained in my video in detail about the brief history of ancient astrology. Here's my YouTube channel. That initially they were using for thousands of years observational astronomy, astrology, and mundane astrology. They were watching, observing the physical sky. So it made sense, all the sense in the world, to use the sidereal zodiac. However, as astrology progressed, certain concepts were invented that revolutionized astrology, and ancient astrology was born. By ancient astrology I mean natal astrology, with the houses, the meanings of the planets, the 12 houses, sect, planetary configurations and aspects, diurnal and nocturnal signs, applications, separations, and what have you, dozens and dozens of concepts, the modalities of the signs, the elements, etc., etc. So the point here is that that's true. Initially, the zodiac was sidereal. That's again, this is a fact. However, the zodiacs coincided, as I explained in my latest video, the sidereal and tropical zodiac, what you're not being told. The point here is that I will show you original sources which they themselves destroy this idea that astrology must reflect the sky, and if it doesn't reflect the sky, Well, let's get to it. This is 2nd century astrologer Vetius Valens, one of the three most influential astrologers, the first one being Claudius Ptolemy, 2nd century CE, Dorotheus of Sidon, and also Valens. Unfortunately, Valens was not as prominent because he was not transmitted to the later cultures and empires in the same way that Dorotheus and especially Ptolemy were. So this is Valens, book 2. Again, in my latest video I gave a link in the description about the full translation of Vetius Valens, as translated by American scholar Mark Riley, and also annotated by this amazing woman. I gave a link. I believe her name was Jane or something. And anyhow, this is Valens, book 2, as you see, speaking and quoting Osiris and the king Nechepso about the lot of fortune. So again, the lot of fortune is something that does not exist in reality. It's a fictional point, as derived from the sun, the moon, and the ascendant. So pay attention here. I'm moving, since I want to make the topic of good fortune more secure and precise, I'm moving on to the lot of fortune, the most influential and most potent place. Folks, pay special attention here. Just as the king is Nechepso, has mystically revealed in the beginning. In his book, the term Spetuzirus explains this place in the same way. Again, the first three inventors of Hellenistic astrology, the most quoted sources are Hermes, Nechepso, Spetuzirus. Now, if Nechepso is giving this with the lot of fortune and Valens is quoting him, again, it kills this view that astrology must reflect the sky. It kills it off, right away, like immediately. Moreover, there is another quote here by, again, this is book 3, again, same book, same author, Valens, the lot of fortune. Here, he uses the lot of fortune to predict the length of life, folks. To predict the length of life with a point that is not physical, that is fictional. In his 13th book, after his preface and his descriptions of the signs, the king Nechepso introduces the lot of fortune. He considers it to be the greatest, and he mentions it throughout his book, calling it the ruling place. Folks, again, direct quote from Valens, 2nd century, one of the most ancient astrologers, and quoting Nechepso. So, there is more, of course, there is much more than this, but again, this is extremely significant because one of our earliest sources are directly speaking about this lot of fortune being so significant. Now, I mentioned also in my video Brief History of Ancient Astrology, 4th century Roman astrologer Firmicus Maternus. He was also a lawyer. He wrote the biggest book on in the Hellenistic tradition. He wrote it in Latin, and he is quoting also lots of ancient sources. And what kind of sets him apart from the other astrologers is that, as I've described, there are two approaches to reading a chart in Hellenistic, in ancient astrology. The first one is the universal approach. This is the first approach that came about, and the second one is the topical approach. So the universal one is more powerful because it looks at the chart from an overall perspective, but the topical approach is more accurate because it gets down to the nitty-gritty, to the houses, to the rulers of the houses, etc. And Firmicus explicitly says that when you read his delineations of again quotes about planets in houses, I should accurately say planets in places, you will see that he's using the universal approach only. You will not see him say something like Perso Arabic or especially medieval astrology said, like, if you have the Lord of the fifth in the second, this means that for example, children will be a source of income, or another interpretation, again depending on the planet, or that you will earn through speculation, or if you're teaching, students will come to you and you will earn through students, because the fifth house rules children and also students, and etc. You will never see this, not just in Firmicus, in any other Hellenistic astrology. You will not see such specific delineations. They came about later, the so-called topical approach. Rhetorius is sort of gives them, but no, it's not enough. He gives them, but he doesn't use them in his how he delineates charts. Anyhow, the point is that Firmicus says that the lots are the primary, they provide the primary information for the topical approach. In other words, it's not the placement of the planets in the houses, it's the lots. So when we're looking at the father, we should not examine the fourth house. We should examine the lot of the father and its lord, etc. He is explicit. So again, and he's quoting many ancient sources, and again, so by this token, those astrologers, siderealists obviously, because the tropical zodiac does not, it does not reflect the physical sky, it hasn't been reflecting it for almost 1800 years, and it's those sidereal astrologers should throw out all the lots, because they're fictional points, right? I mean, they're not on the sky. Why use them? I mean, you're contradicting yourselves with such with such claims, with such views. Next, of course, there is more. Let's examine the ancient methods of almost all of them are in fact involve so-called rulers of the times, chronocrators, which many astrologers, especially Western, translate as time lords. It's wrong, it's incorrect to call them time lords. The correct phrase is rulers of the times in plural, because the ancient astrologers spoke about different times in the lives of men and women, not one time. Okay, so this is the professional software Delphic Oracle that I use, one of the softwares, I have others as well, and here, as you will see, it's not a coincidence that the top method is called circumambulations, or as came to be known in the later tradition, primary directions, but it's incorrect to call it primary directions. The correct term is circumambulation or distributions, as Ben Dykes and others have translated, but especially Benjamin Dykes. Huge gratitude to Ben Dykes. So this approach is a combination of what we call what was known as primary directions in the later tradition, and the so-called confines or bounds or terms. And again, if so primary directions, that's fine. They have this, these configurations happened after birth, so we could say that they reflect the sky. That's fine. So they can be used. However, the confines, the bounds, they cannot be used. They should not be used if, again, you're coming from a perspective that astrology must fully reflect the sky, as many siderealists are coming from such a perspective. So again, you should drop them. Having said that, what you should be aware of, as I said, is there is a reason that the author of this software, the developer, Curtis Manwaring, the American astrologer, put them here on top, because this is the most powerful technique of ancient astrology. All astrologers are unanimous about it. It's the most precise, it's the most sensitive to time, so again, this would involve throwing out the so-called distributors and using only the partners, which are the rays and the bodies of the planets. Okay, so you're also throwing this out. Let's see what else you're gonna have to throw out also. Decennials, very potent predictive technique, very, very similar to the Hindu Dasha system. It has 2 levels and 2 more, in fact 4. So again, the way decennials is, the rationale behind decennials is it reflects somewhat the sky, but again, not enough, because you are not gonna see it in the sky. So the rationale is this: decennial, it means 10. So the total number of years per any planet is 10 years and 9 months. And when you multiply this, 10 years times 12 months is 120 plus 9, 129. So 129 months is the length of any period of any of the planets, of any of the 7 planets, and then it repeats. And yes, sure, 129 is the total number of minor years of the planets. The Sun has 19, the Moon has 25, Mercury has 20, Venus has 8, Mars has 15, Jupiter has 12, and Saturn has 30. So there could be some, although these are, to be precise, these are somewhat approximations, because the planets of Mars, they derive from heliacal faces, and it's not always 15. Jupiter, it's not 1200, it's slightly less than 12, etc., etc. Likewise with Saturn, as we all know with the Saturn return. So this technique, and also For example, let me show a chart. Let's see. Let's see. So this is a let me find something. Yes, so the sun is in the 12th. It's a day chart because the sun is above the distant horizon. So we'll start with the sun. If the sun is in a good place, if it doesn't fall or miss, the sun is in the 12th house, both by whole sign and by quadrant, if again depending on what we're using. And then so we throw away the sun. Then we go to the moon. The moon is again depending. The moon is in the third sign. It's in the third house, or it's in the second. So we throw away the sun and we will start with the moon if the moon is in a place conducive to business, in a busy place. If the moon is not, then we will start with the first planet after the ascendant. Again, this is it does not reflect the sky. It's not this rationale. It's also if someone could argue the point that but it somewhat reflects the sky. Sure. However, did you know that this technique uses 360-day years? In other words, it uses the ideal Egyptian year. Again, what's going on here? Physical reality is 365 days, 0.25, right? So what gives? So you're gonna have to throw away this one too. Next, Fredaria, which is similar but less powerful because Fredaria is just depending on the sect, whether if you're born, as you see, it directly calculates all the planets, all the sequences, because it's fixed. Whereas this one is personalized to the nativity, customized. So with Fredaria, again, these sequences, Sun, Venus, Mercury, Moon, Saturn, etc. Where is this coming from? And also with Fredaria, you have the nodes. You have the north node and the south node ruling times. How can you have fictional points? Again, Moon crossing the ecliptic to the north and to the south. These points to rule time. So again, you'd have to throw this out as well. Moving on, what else are you going to have to throw out if you keep insisting that astrology must reflect the sky, fully reflect the sky? Quarters of the moon. Honestly, it's been years since I've used this. I don't use it. I use Decennials and Fredaria all the time. This one, let's see. I believe it had to do with the. Yes, it had to do with the prenatal syzygy. This is the phase, the conjunction. But anyhow, we have these. Yes, as you see, the planets are ordering after the syzygy: the Sun, Venus, Jupiter, etc. The Moon. Again, the length of the periods, etc., etc. It's somewhat, again, it's not enough. You'd have to throw this away. 129-year system. Honestly, I have forgotten how this is used. Again, it's been many years. I don't, because there are so many techniques that I have. I have what I have. I have like 7-8 that I use all the time. But Bourbill's procedure, I believe this was based on the exaltations. Again, there are no exaltations in the sky. You'd have to throw away this too. Perfections. Again, this. You'd also have to throw this away, actually. These cycles, because they would have to repeat. And this, again, it's houses, it's not planets, so you don't have. It's not visible. Anyhow, it's not here. I mean. And I will mention an astrologer, a famous historical astrologer that threw away perfections, actually, and others. Next, Luna Monomoiria. I think I have forgotten the rationale for this. Anyhow, and again, the years are so sort of uneven that no physical sky. Again, you have to throw this away. Zodiacal releasing from fortune. One of the most powerful techniques surviving from ancient astrology. Again, Robert Schmidt, he did a tutorial on this subject. American astrologer Chris Brennan was very influenced. He trained with Schmidt and etc. They developed this method. They tested it thoroughly in sidereal and tropical, and the result is absolutely unambiguous. It works in tropical, it doesn't work in sidereal. I mean, you can have, again, as with other techniques, if you have 20, 30, 40% accuracy, nowhere near enough, it's not good enough. So again, this is a very weird technique. It does not supposed to work, but it works amazingly well. Again, first of all, we're releasing a lot that doesn't exist in reality, and we're using some sort of rationale about the length of time ruled by the planets. It's not actually even the planets, it's the science, it's the images. 20 years because of Mercury, 25 for Cancer because of the Moon, but we have this very, very weird concept of loosening of the bond that happens in certain zodiac images, not in all, depending on the length of the period. Again, it's running Leo, and all of a sudden it jumps to Aquarius, and it also on the lower levels as well. Again, nothing like this in physical reality. And if that were not enough, we are also using a 360-day year here as well. So, and if that were not enough, the length of the period of Capricorn is 27, whereas the length of Aquarius is 30 years. 30 because of Saturn. But again, 27. Why 27? You know, Valens gives some rationale, but that's not the point. It's not in the sky. Saturn's period is not 27. Again, you'd have to throw away this. And Valens uses this method for length of life, for injuries, for crisis, for events that befall the native. It can also be used for beautification, etc. Whereas the other, the lot of spirit, this is the Schmidt's tutorial and Chris Berrien's work also that he continued. It's used for the professional ups and downs, not for determining the career, but for determining when the native will change life direction, when they can move to a new career, or when they will have, you know, some severe, some sudden drop or change in life circumstances, etc., etc. Or they will have a continuation, depending on the rules. Again, you would have to throw this away. Next, 9 years of the moon. Sorry, I have forgotten about this, but again, these strange assignations of length of time. Again, you'd have to, nothing like this in the sky, throw it away. Yearly circular periods. Oh my god, they're so long. Look, this is not for humans. Anyhow, but again, the rationale here, yeah, this one is also out. Monthly circular periods. Again, 27 years the sun. Again, it's anyhow. Throw this away too. Daily circular periods. Well, it's the same, so I'm not gonna bother. Annual divisions. There are several. This is used for dividing the year, the solar return year, from solar return to solar return to fall under the jurisdiction of certain planets and their sequence. Again, it would depend upon the author and their length, etc., etc. Again, we have yeah. So this one again kind of reflects, but not well enough. You know, if you are making such hardcore statements, it must fully reflect reality. Sorry, this one, throwing away this one too. So let's see. Of course, it's not just in the Hellenistic tradition. The lots and these methods, distributions, decennials, Fredaria, perfections, zodiacal releasing, they were also zodiacal releasing, not to such an extent. They were transmitted. And again, all the astrologers used them when they had access to such sources. So it's not just the earliest authors. And let's see. What else? Well, let me examine briefly the Indian tradition and say that in India they for example, in the 20th century, two of the greatest Indian astrologers. One is Raman, Bangalore, I believe. Raman, very famous, many books, very influential. He is considered by many to be the greatest mundane astrologer of the 20th century. He has made the number of correct predictions he has made is amazing. Again, he was using he's Indian. He was using Indian astrology. He was using the sidereal zodiac. And speaking of this, well, Indian astrologers, just as an example, Indian astrologers, for example, they do not observe the sky, as I will explain, but they do not even observe the midheaven. In other words, the 10th house cusp, the intersection of the meridian with the ecliptic. They would say that with Gemini, they don't care whether the MC falls. They know that the 10th for all Geminis is Pisces. This is the career house, not the midheaven. So they don't care if there is a planet conjunct the MC degree or very close within some degrees, etc. They don't care about that when it falls outside the 10th domicile. Okay, they don't have primary directions, which is again the technique that reflects. They don't use it. They have their dashas, and they use what they have. They have dashas, they have transits, and pretty much I haven't heard of other. They have many dashas, but the principle is the same. They have one primary technique, chronocritor or rules of the time technique. And the other astrologer is Krishnamurti, not the philosopher Jiddu Krishnamurti, but the late 20th century Krishnamurti. Well, he. Let me show you. He was using this is the free software Planet Dance. Amazing. I will probably make a video about it to endorse it and to recommend it. I use it regularly. So it has aside from ancient astrology, it has also a module for Indian astrology, for Hellenistic, medieval. It has for modern. It has horror. It has many things, and it's absolutely free. And so with Krishnamurti, he noticed that the whole sign house system was not enough in the sense that it was very ineffective in the lives of twins. So he invented a method called Sublords, whereby I'm not gonna dwell on this, but the point is this is the method that he's dividing the zodiac into 200 and something, I forgot the number, sorry, 200 and something parts. So this is extremely specific. And the thing is that as you see, the Indians, they're using Rahu and Ketu, the north node and the south node, as rulers of the times, as chronocrators. Again, these points are fictional points. They are not visible planets. Nevertheless, they use them. And this is the sequence is the same as in the dasha, based on the moon's nakshatra. But the point is, this is not in the sky. This is not in the sky. So you can't see Rahu Ketu. You can't see this sequence, or you can't, or that the nodes have Rahu and Ketu rule some nakshatras. Again, how again, it completely misses the point. Someone would say, well, no, it doesn't. Obviously, the view that astrology must reflect fully the sky is totally wrong. Totally wrong. As you're seeing again and again, tradition after tradition. What I know about Krishnamurti from astrologers, I know that speak Sanskrit, that have been to India, that practice Indian astrology professionally, that know Indian astrologers, is that there were such big waiting lines for Krishnamurti that, for example, the Apple Corporation, that when they were releasing their iPhones, hundreds of people, for unknown reasons, but anyhow, they were rushing to get the latest phone, the newly launched phone. Well, they had hundreds of meters of lines, whereas with Krishnamurti he had kilometric lines of people waiting for a consultation. And what I've heard is he didn't charge, or probably at first he didn't charge money, but the point is he was so good, he was so precise, Krishnamurti, that he was able to predict, for example, when electricity went out, he was able to predict when they would turn it back on in India, or when a train was being delayed, when the passengers were waiting, he could predict when the train would arrive. Folks, this is a level of accuracy that's, astounding, impressive to say the least. I mean, amazing. Again, without observing and having to reflect the sky. let's see, and the final nail in the coffin of this view that astrology must reflect the sky comes from Chinese astrology. Again, I specialize in ancient, in Western astrology, and in Chinese astrology. And in my article, "What is Chinese Astrology?", which is extremely detailed, and also in my videos, I explain that. I mean, I started last week, but I'm about to make many videos in the coming months. Chinese astrology, they don't use the planets. Let me repeat that. There are no planets in Chinese astrology. So how can they observe the sky when they have no? So what are they doing? What they're measuring, what they're using is the energy of the sky and earth, what they call chi, prana, etc. And they're also using many fictional stars. The two main branches, 4 pillars of destiny and the emperor astrology, Zivei Doshu, they use over 100 stars. These stars are fictional stars, like the lots, yet they work tremendously well. They're tremendously accurate. And as I mentioned this in Brief History of Chinese Astrology, there were Europeans that traveled to China, and they reported that in China, it was in the Middle Ages, it was tantamount to getting a death penalty for daring to study mathematics required for the astrological calculations. Astrological knowledge was only ownership of the emperor and the imperial court. Again, if this astrology did not work, why bother keep it from the public? Why dilute it as they did with emperor astrology, etc. And yet it doesn't reflect the sky at all. It doesn't even use planets. So what's going on here? Well, what's going on here is this representation, this picture that I found that best catches what I'm trying to explain here. That what we're dealing with astrology is we're studying eternal principles. We're studying, we are reading, so to say, the thoughts of the divine. We are applying eternal principles with some mathematics, with some astronomical and mathematical calculations, but we're not dealing with physical reality per se. Physical reality is a consequence of these principles and of the higher worlds. Again, as above, so below, as Hermes said, but he did not mean the physical sky only or per se, just the physical. Okay, as I'm proving and showing again and again. So very important. And I will also close with by quoting Robert Zoller, who said that with Plato, in the Republic of Plato, again, a very famous Greek philosopher, 4th century before the Common Era, in the Republic and in the Epinomis, Plato repeatedly says, do not focus on the physical planets, do not focus on physical reality. We're looking for the laws, logoi in ancient Greek, the laws of reality, the laws of nature, like the Chinese with their Aegean. We are looking into the eternal laws. So again, this principle, you can again, amazing picture. I'm very glad that I found this one. We're looking for something that's for some organizing principle. This web of rays, of correspondences, of vibrations, however you want to call it, coming from the atmospheres, from the superior worlds. So again, if you have astrologers that keep insisting on this view, please refer them to this video. Let them watch it. Let them correct their stance, because honestly, it just doesn't hold water. It doesn't hold. It just doesn't hold. However, there are always fanatics in any field, and I will, truth be told, and to be thorough, I will give you a fanatic that was that actually lived this. He believed it, he claimed it, and he lived it. And that fanatic is a French astrologer, Jean-Baptiste Morin, of the 17th century. Now, let me say that there are historical reasons for astrology, for ancient astrology being trimmed, this reductionist agenda, because of politics and war and religion. Because, as you know, the Islamic civilization threatened Europe, and it's not that Europe didn't threaten Islamic civilization also, but the point is that they came to Europe. I'm from Bulgaria. Bulgaria was under the Ottoman yoke for 5 centuries. And the point is that Europe was threatened. And as a result of this, they started throwing away all Arabic things, including Arabic astrology, obviously. Unfortunately, as we say in modern times, they threw the baby with the bathwater, because this Perso-Arabic astrology contained a lot of concepts of the original tradition from Dorotheus, etc. And people such as Morin, again, such fanatics, he had 6 planets in Pisces, or was it 5? 6? 5 planets in Pisces. Anyhow, and he in the 12th house, and he threw away everything. He threw away what Morin was practicing. He was using primary directions, not the bounds, only primary directions, the rays and the bodies of the planets. He was using solar revolutions. He was using lunar revolutions. He threw away perfections. He was Firdaria, Decenios, etc. if you ever knew about them. So primary directions, solar revolutions, lunar revolutions, secondary progressions, and transits. That's it. So he may have been a fanatic. I really like Morin. Despite all this, there is something to be gained from any astrologer who is forthcoming in his work, who is showing how he's practicing, who is not just theorizing like many astrologers did. And he's showing his system. Hate him, love him, whatever. He was a man of his word, and he was walking, he was walking his talk. So again, there is much to be learned from him. Obviously, I disagree with so many things about his system. Nevertheless, it is a system. So those fanatical astrologers that claim again that tropical zodiac is wrong, it's incorrect, I've even heard them say it's a mistake. Again, if you want to take this all the way, throw away this and practice like Morin. I should let you know that Morin was actually using the tropical zodiac. I'm serious. And he explained why in detail. He wrote 26 books. So again, he had his system, he had his reasoning, etc., and he gave it. He published it. He was not withholding. So this is what I wanted to share. I hope you found it educational. Again, there was this quote that the universe is much stranger. It's not just stranger than we think. It's stranger than we can think, by this German theoretical physicist. Likewise with astrology, we're living in some very, very weird reality with very rules that, again, as I've shown and explained in detail, do not have to conform to this physical sky where we're dealing with eternal principles. So if you're resonating with what I'm the videos I'm making, the information, etc., if you'd like to subscribe, that would be great. If you can like the video, or if you'd like to leave a comment or a question, that would also be, I look forward to reading it. Thank you for watching.